Hey, so one of the guys in the chat in Premium asked me to look at RSR and BTT. I can't find BTT on my watch list, so I can't look at it right now. But he said RSR and OMG. So what I'm noticing is they're all very similar, right? So you see we had the bottom, then we had the next leg down, right? The next dip, slight bounce up, next move down, and we're bouncing right on that trend line, right? Now look at the Stoke on the hourly. Stoke on the hourly is reversing, right? Now remember that 3 points of contact, initial bounce, second one, and the next one, and then the Stoke turning bullish on the hourly. Now let's look at, say, LTC, right? LTC is almost identical, right? So look, we got whoops. Uptrend, just like that. Not as perfect with that second wick going slightly further, but you get the point. Same trend, right? So we have this uptrend as the Stokes bottoming out. What was the other one you wanted me to look at? Was, I don't remember. It was OMG, I think. But look, same thing. Like I just picked ADA randomly. That's an old one. Get rid of that. I can draw this on pretty much any of them, right? Look at this, like every single one of them. Big move down. Next bounce, third bounce. 3 points of contact, right as the stochastic oscillator all the way in the bottom of the screen is starting to bottom out and about to turn up on the hourly model. All of them. CHZ, same thing. ENJ, identical. HOT, identical. I could draw that same trend line on all of these charts. That's nuts. So, what I'm getting at, you see the Stoke is bottoming out, and we have that perfect trend line with that final dip bouncing off that trend line. Now, if you watch my earlier update video, I said that on Bitcoin, what I think very well may be possible is we have this trend line with 2 points of contact. We might get a final dump right to that trend line and bounce from there. You'll notice the Stoke hasn't made it all the way down as far as the other ones have, but it's starting to bounce up a little earlier here. But it's still almost identical. It just didn't quite get down to the trend line support, which tells me we could get a final dump to that trend line and then bounce, or we may continue to bounce here. The fact is, all the alts are bouncing. Now, this orange line, that's the one I drew, 2 days ago now? As soon as we hit that bottom, we started recovery, I said, this is exactly how we bounced back at the March 2020 dump. Exactly like that. Initial pump back up, retrace, next leg up, and a continuation of that recovery indefinitely for quite a long time. What I also had noticed, the way I saw the structure of the recovery, there's some other similarities, and it kind of hit me earlier when I was doing my last update video. Or no, I did a couple of YouTube shorts today, and on those YouTube shorts, it was just a quick 60-second update. One of the things that I felt like mentioning, which I think is particularly relevant, is when you have this massive dump like this, right? You have really big accounts that are liquidating and getting out and driving the price down. These guys know what they're doing. They're driving the price down so they can buy at the bottom and ride it back up. They're not going to sell high. They're not going to sell high only to buy back higher, right? They're not going to sell low only to buy back high. So what they're doing is they're liquidating, and that's driving the price down. When the price rockets back up. Now, to have a move like this, a big dump down, take a look at this, right? So if I use the price tool, and I go just from the last leg down, that last red structure down to the bottom, 30% dump, right? Immediately followed by a 36% recovery pump. To have every exchange, we're not talking about, it just was a quick dump and a quick pump back up on Bitstamp or on Binance where there was one big trader on one exchange that was liquidating and then buying back. We're not talking about that. We're talking about across all exchanges. Large accounts were liquidating their Bitcoin, driving the price down, and then started buying it back up, driving the price back up, right? So they sold higher up, caused people's orders. Essentially, it's a cascading effect. They cause the price to dump, which hits people's stop losses. People get liquidated. Next thing you know, you're getting a cascading effect where you're dumping down even further till eventually you essentially get into a squeeze situation where people are liquidating and that drives the price back up. Once that happens, right, and they've bought back in, Why would it dump back down? If these are the market makers, these are the big players that control the price action. They're able to manipulate the market by trading huge sums of money. There's obviously manipulation by guys like Elon or big players and nation states like China. Or they could make a play and they could make an announcement or try to crack down on crypto and drive the price down. There's plenty of that going on, obviously, but you also have traders making big moves, and the traders that are making the big moves are not going to buy back up the price just to take a loss on the next dump down. I'm pretty confident the amount of money that has to flow to get that sort of 30% dump across every exchange and every pairing in the entirety of the market, followed by an instantaneous 36% rebound pump, right? In order for that to happen, we have such substantial sums of money that we're talking about whales. And those whales are not going to let it dump again after they just bought back into that low. I think that 30K support really likely was the bottom. Some guys are bearish in my trading group. I don't see it. Now, the only way I can justify being bearish here, and one of my mods in the group, he's a really good trader. He learned from the best. Of course, he's a good trader, but he was really bearish, and he's saying, set your stop losses tight. Now, I've been telling the whole group, a lot of the guys have been getting into trades with me. I've shared the trades that I think might have the highest potential returns on the rebound because they're just geared up for a really big recovery run. I'll give you one right now is Matic. Matic is geared for an explosive recovery run in my view. So that being said, I think the majors are also going to really have a party. BCH, LTC, ETH, BTC, they're going to make a solid run. But I think right now, the only reason why he was bearish is because there's so much, for lack of a better term, fuckery. You have big players that are making big moves and manipulating the market with announcements. You have people who are making big moves and manipulating the market by adjusting their trade, their play action on the order books, distorting the order books. So there's a lot of that going on. So when anything like that is going on, you really don't know what's going to happen. Based purely on the technicals, the fundamentals, and the market psychology side of things, I think we rocket back up. Now, again, you always have to consider the possibility that we dump. Now, that's the only reason why I haven't gotten into any leveraged longs. I may open up a smaller leveraged long where I could put, a smaller amount into a leveraged long where I'm willing to take a liquidation, worst case scenario if it dumps, because on the upside, if I am right and we do pump, I'm talking about a 400, 500, 800% return. So it's worth putting a little bit of money in for such a substantial return and taking that risk. So I think I may do that. I might place an additional leverage long. But as of right now, I still think it's possible we can get a final dip to this trendline support. If you look at all these altcoins, it's almost like it's giving you a window to the future for Bitcoin. If Bitcoin follows that same path and they just sort of catch up, Bitcoin can catch up to the alts. Because right now the alts are running a little bit ahead in that model. That model where I have that 3 points of contact creating that strong trendline support, that requires everything to kind of move in unison, and Bitcoin's a little bit behind. You can see the Stoke hasn't fully reset, but you can see all these assets are in the exact same position. I just clicked another random one. I haven't even looked at this yet, and the Stoke is resetting, and again, I have 3 points of contact on a strong trend line. That's exactly what I expected for Bitcoin. So right now, we might get that final dump on Bitcoin. The fact that we're seeing the all slightly dip here on this 1 hourly candle along with Bitcoin tells me that it's probably the case that if Bitcoin were to make a final dump to that trend line, these are all going to come down and break the trend line. But if there were to be a quick wick down and it's very small and doesn't come down very far below that trend line, I don't necessarily want to consider it invalidated, because usually when that happens, immediately it recovers and it goes back to being a strong trend line support as soon as the price gets back above it. It's just a very brief break, and then you get equilibrium on the order books. Whatever buy wall was there propping up that price goes back to doing its thing. So I think there's a good chance that'll get restored. We'll see what happens in this hourly candle. So everything I'm getting at here, what I'm seeing on the alts, and the fact that we're a little bit behind on Bitcoin tells me that this hourly candle is probably it. The fact that all the alts have a full reset on the Stoke and BTC is just a little bit behind, I can see this hourly candle is 48 minutes left. It's turning a little red now, but it's not necessarily spelling doom. we could kind of see it go either way, but that's going to be the key. You guys need to watch those trend lines. So if you're looking for a potential entry, it's not a bad time to get into the alts. The alts are sitting right on that trend line or very close to it. I would get into stuff that is right on that trend line. You also want to get into something that has a 4-hour and an hourly reset on the Stoch. I haven't really gone over the 4-hour Stochs on the alts, but those are also turning extremely bullish. Same thing with Bitcoin. You can see it turning up on Bitcoin and several of the alts as well, whether it's Doge or whether it's some of the more normal and less manipulated alts, be it JST, RSR, which is one of the guys in the group was asking me to look at. Again, same thing. Link is something that might get a strong recovery bounce, although I will admit Link has been a little bit weaker of late as everything else was continuing its final push up to the all-time highs before that last dump. Link wasn't really making the sort of moves it was earlier in the season. My theory is that we get a really strong recovery run. This FUD event will go down as something that caused a big dump. And if you were around in 2017 and 2018, even in 2016, before I was really trading, you know that these sorts of dumps are completely normal. In the crypto markets, you have people on MSNBC are saying, oh, crypto is irresponsible to have people trading in crypto. It just retraced, it just completely dumped 50% in 2 days. It's like, yeah, it also went up 12,000% in the last 5 months. So what the hell are you people talking about? Like, how stupid are you? And more importantly, how stupid do you think your viewers are? How many of their viewers are watching that and they're thinking like, wait, wasn't Bitcoin a year ago at $3,200? So it went from $3,200 to $63,000, and you're suggesting that a brief retrace to 30